He's been tied up with the museum for many years, and I said to him when he was keen to come over and be our guest speaker that I said he will see lots and lots of familiar faces here. So welcome to David. I was so pleased he could make it, and he, would you believe, has a business appointment after the here, so he won't be able to hang around too long. So we'd just like to say thank you so much for coming, David. I really appreciate it. But David Gardner, Director of the RAAF Museum, as you're all aware, in fact some of you actually work there as volunteers, which is great to see. He was born in Mareeba, North Queensland, and educated in Townsville. Queenslander. Oh, we won't hold that against him. Dave joined the RAAF on the 8th of February 1967, and after completing recruit training at No. 1 Recruit Training Unit, Edinburgh, South Australia, completed his aircraft technician training at RAAF School of Technical Training in Wagga during 1967 and 68. Apart from a multitude of other postgraduate aircraft and associated courses, he was trained as a non-destructive inspector at the Aeronautical Research Laboratories, Melbourne, in 1970, and continued to work as an aircraft technician. David has served as a number of RAAF squadrons and units in Australia and overseas prior to his posting to the RAAF Museum. These included No. 10 Squadron, No. 16 Army Light Aircraft Unit, No. 1B Operational Conversion Unit, No. 2 Squadron, No. 7 Stores Depot, No. 3 Aircraft Depot, No. 1 Flying Training School, and on instructional and examination staff at RAAF School of Technical Training. So he's certainly been around. He worked on aircraft including Sabre, Dakota, Neptune, I even remember some of them, don't I? Cessna C-180, Canberra, the Sioux, Iroquois and Chinook helicopters, the F-4E Phantom, famous, F-111, and as those who were here earlier saw the presentation which John kindly arranged for us a few years ago. That's still one of my favourite presentations. I love it. Thank you, John, again. And the CT4 Air Trainer. He retired from the RAAF WOE in March 1997 after 30 years service. Well done. Dave was appointed curator of the RAAF Museum in June 1986 and director in 2000. First civilian director of the museum. During this time at the museum, he has taken the museum from a dusty collection of artefacts to a world-class aviation museum, showcasing the proud history of the RAAF. I have to say, I totally agree with that, David. Quite a few years ago, those of you who were here at the time, we organised a visit over to Point Cook and we did a tour. And Ron Gretton had a lot to do with that, and we saw the string and wire aircraft, and that was fantastic. Lovely tour that was. This development culminated with the opening of the museum's new Heritage Gallery, which David designed and produced. He has been actively involved in the restoration, maintenance and operating of the museum's Sopwith Pup, Tiger Moth, CT4A, Windshield, Harvard, Fokker Triplane, Ventura, Mustang, and more recently the RE8, as well as other static display aircraft. He has presented several articles on aircraft restoration and recovery and Air Force history at conferences in Australia, New Zealand, Japan and the UK. Dave has provided guidance and advice to various historic aircraft organisations within Australia and overseas. He holds an Associate Diploma in Aircraft Maintenance Engineering, Airframes, a Graduate Diploma in Museum Management, a Master of Applied Science and Museum Studies and postgraduate courses in Paper Conservation and Art. He is a valuer under the tax incentives for the Arts Scheme for Historic Aircraft, Australia Flying Course and RAAF, ephemera, medals, uniforms and memorabilia, as well as an expert examiner for aircraft and the protection of movable cultural heritage. Oh my God, I can hardly even say something like that. His interest, and I have had a bit of a quiet chat today, having struggled with retirement myself, and I've said you better have some outside interest, Dave. You're going to miss that sort of life. His interest, he has 3 grandchildren: gardening, reading and woodworking, and pit crews for daughter's Volkswagen Combi. Yay! So look, there's a lot happened at Laverton and Point Cook, as you know, and I know that there are some around here today who were involved actively in, to use the phrase if you like, Save Point Cook. Since then, of course, there's been developments at Point Cook that we hear about, but we really don't know what's going on. We hear that Laverton may well close and become a civilian extended development of the Laverton area, don't know. And of course the museum has gone through enormous change. So Dave, I'm sure there'll be a lot of interest in your presentation. So thank you so much again for coming. I'll give you a warm welcome to David Gardner.
For the blackhanders, I'll speak normally. For the rest of you gay traders, queer traders, I'll talk slowly, okay? Understand me. So, we've got to get this right. And it is a bit hard. I know there's a few hecklers, the John Clarksons, the Ron Bettons, the Ross Garraways, and those people around here. They're going to work for me. And don't forget, I'll cut your pay if you come back.
Yeah, I'll take that.
How can we cut back further?
Yeah. After hearing all that, I'm a bit tired now, so I might have to be like you fellas and have my senior's nap. Look, it's a pleasure to come here. Ron's been chasing for some time to talk about the RAAF Museum, and it is a bit of a passion with me. And yes, we have been talking about retirement. The new commander was a bit worried I might fly the coop while he's there, so he's sort of making sure everything's happy in my neck of the woods, so we can keep you on and keep you honest. The RAAF Museum, for a lot of you people, I don't know if people know, but the RAAF Museum is actually a unit in the Royal Australian Air Force. I report to Commander Air Force Training Group, and they budget, they pay for the bills. As you can see, we have the Regent Bowerbird. That is our badge, collected preserve. When I put that up in 1988, there was no argument from the Queen. She signed off on it. Around about March every year, we take the Bowerbird out and we put the vulture in there, because people coming off to see money they can't spend before the end of the financial year. So we try and do that for them. Again, I won't show you the bruises because there's ladies present. For me, overspending again this year, but we have projects which we try and wait for March to come around and we can get them done. But look.
Should have stuck with the old.
So basically the presentation, we'll try and get through it so you've got questions at the end. We collect and conserve all RAAF heritage items. We have a rather large collection. We're in excess of 100,000 items at the present moment. But as you can see, we have to catalogue them all. We have staff there, and we'll be going through what our staffing's like at the moment. We do restore and maintain static display aircraft and technical equipment. We just don't look after aircraft. When I first came to the museum, it was aircraft, and the rest of the stuff was in storage all over Australia. And as soon as places like 7SD, 2SD, 7SD was at Tottenham all the way, 2SD was at Regent's Park in Dubbo, and 7SD up in Toowoomba, they started closing down. They had to get rid of the gear they were holding for the RAAF Museum, and it came back. One day alone, we had 14 semi-trailer loads of stuff turn up, and we had to unload it. But we had to start cataloguing, and we're doing that quite well at the present moment. And we have a rather large collection. And when we go into displays, I'll explain where some of that's going to go to. We maintain and operate historic aircraft and for public programs. I'm 25. The grey hairs are putting up the pilots that are flying the aircraft actually. So it keeps you busy. We also are the custodians of all the laid up colours. The colours come to the RAAF Chapel at Point Cook, and up until about 3 years ago they weren't maintained, looked after, and so because it's part of our job to look after the colours. We have another set coming in shortly from Wagga Wagga, and so we'll have them and we conserve them. Presently you won't see them in the chapel because the chapel's under restoration, and so we've got them in storage in the museum until the chapel's restorations are finished, because if you can see some of our contractors, they don't appreciate what that sort of thing's about, so we try and eliminate the danger of them being damaged. We manage and maintain the Air Force's image archive, and for you gentlemen and not the ladies, but we used to have it called a Central Photographic Establishment, if everybody remembers that. It closed down in 1999. It was civilianised, and the Air Force decided that all the ground negatives that were in there, from glass slides through to 35mm negatives, were to come to the RAAF Museum. We got 140,000 envelopes, which we thought was great, except that some had 1 in, some had 25 in. Our latest count is we've got about 3.5 million negatives, and we're having to look after them. We have a problem with it, which is a worldwide phenomenon of vinegar syndrome, where they're reverting. About 87,000 of ours are reverting, but we're scanning them and getting on the hard drive so we don't lose that collection. So we got that by default. Like in England, the Air Force, give it to them, they'll look after it. Human resources, oh, we might have to do something about that later on. And the 2 fellows we got working there are doing very well. And we also, public affairs activities, as well as all the other things we've got to do. We have 82 aircraft in the collection of 60 different types, and they're operating, static display and restoration, or in storage. And we have 100,000 items at the moment. As you can see, million images are the photographs. The photographic collection is separate to the negative collection. We have 3 million, 3.5 million, and all our films are at the National Archive of Chester Hill, where they've got a proper facility for all the films because of the combustible side of some of them. We're trying to get them copied over, but it's a very expensive process. And we have a rather large collection of technical publications, and in recent years we've been able to get a lot of it coming in from the platforms going out of service as digitised, which of course saves a lot of room. And as we go along with the ones we already have, we are digitising them and putting them into storage. We won't get rid of them, but we'll put them into storage. As I said, we headquarters Air Force Training Group, and I report actually to OC Air Training Wing, simply because we fly. Now, some of you people may have heard that we have a History and Heritage branch in the Air Force now, run by Air Commodore John Meyer. That is totally separate from us. They look after the heritage centres in Wagga, Williamtown, Amberley and Townsville, and we look after the RAAF Museum. The reason we come under Air Training Wing, because I have a flying fleet, I have to have somebody overseeing that side. I'm a TECO, I'm the pilot, so they have the CO of CFS in a gentleman's agreement. He is my pilot to oversee my ops. So, matter of fact, yesterday I went and they did his checkout yesterday. One stage we had a little bit of nepotism there. He was checking him out, he was checking him out. Boy, that doesn't work in the real thing. So now we are under airworthiness boards with the Air Force. We have to do everything right. And so Air Training Wing do keep an eye on us quite well. Our staff, we have 4 PAF. That's the pilot, who is Glenn Coy. He is the officer. He looks after the reserve pilot. And the other 3 PAF have only just come on board. The thing was, we got 7 flying aircraft. The 2 TECO public servants weren't doing the job. Our volunteers are very, very good, but they're limited in what they can do. All our aircraft are civil registered, owned by the Air Force. So I have 2 masters, Ronald RAAF here, CASA there, and we've got to keep them both happy. The Air Force rules are more stringent and we stick to them, but CASA keeps on their tuppence worth in. So we've got 3 PAF, 2 corporals and an LAC, just started up this year, and they're going very well. Quite excited to come to the museum. They've tankers, AWACS and Orions, and of course they come back in technology. There's no such thing as AVTUR in our area, it's all our gas, and they are thoroughly enjoying it. So we want them to have that, because when their posting time's up, they're going to be talking to their mates, and their mates are going to want to come there. Now, we're trying to build it up the same as the Battleship Memorial Flight in England, but we're going to have a little bit of a problem with that. We have 17 APS, and at the moment we've got 3 vacancies. People go to greener pastures, and so when they resign, it's a bit of a long drawn-out process to get them filled. We're just going through it. As you can see, our reserves, we've got 8 pilots, and a warrant officer. He is almost full-time. He's our unit safety advisor. When the Air Force brought in this unit safety system, every unit had one. and they left us out. And when I challenged it, they said, oh, we only got 90 people to look after it, until I told them about the 8 pilots, the reserves, and our volunteers. We have got more than the normal squadron has. So we have a warrant officer who is a USA, and he looks after the safety side. He's brought a whole different culture to us, and I'm not being derogatory here. Some of our volunteers are old, they don't know about that sort of thing. They've got to come in the line, and they do. And Backburnham's done a very good job to change that safety culture. So when everybody goes home of a night time, they've got 10 of these left on their fingers, or they're still walking at least. So as you can see, our 80 active volunteers are employed in a lot of jobs there. The only thing they don't do is our administration, simply because of the DR and the Defence Restricted Network. We have our heritage gallery, of course, special exhibition, and the display hangers. We get in excess of 120,000. At the present moment, by mid this year, we'll probably, I could probably guesstimate, we'll probably hit 140,000 this year, which isn't too bad for us. We've actually got our advertising worked out properly now, and we're picking the right venues. Our maintenance restoration, the visitor can see the restoration, and our interactive flying display. We operate 7 aircraft. And we also have a selected group of civilian pilots, Mike Falls from Essendon with his Harvard, Rob Fox from Moorabbin with his Bird Dog, and others. They come in, they fly to our rules. They sign up to our flying orders instructions. They do everything that the Air Force do, except they're civvies. They love it. They toe the line. And if anybody's been watching the Shrine fly past over Anzac Day, there is one on Sunday, we can get up to 7 aircraft trainers, Harvards, Winchills and CT4s to do a mass formation fly past, and these fellas come in and do it for us. The lead is always Air Force. And we do community engagement. So our interactives obviously Tuesdays, Thursdays and Sundays, very popular. Sunday, for instance, I've heard that we had something like 1,500 people in on Sunday, which was a long weekend, and so advertising is working. Our displays, as I said, we wanted to get away from aeroplanes. Okay, there's man and machine, but the men are important as machines. We do cover it. We've just finished the World War I galleries because of the 100th anniversary of World War I, and so this is sort of standard displays we have there. At the moment, you're looking at the curator, and my collection is managed because our curator resigned. He was a bit of a petrol head. He's now running the Racing Museum in Bathurst. So we lost a good fellow, but we'll advertise and get somebody else in. This also shows the World War I gallery of the middle of the Western Front. So we went into that area. There's not just World War I. This shows you, oops, sorry. Go back, we have Butterworth, World War II. They're standing now. When I was talking about changing, when I first designed it, we had World War II, Europe, Fighter Command, Coastal Command, Bomber Command all smashed together. And over the years we've looked at it, and we've just started the process. Coastal Command, Fighter Command, the odd ones, and Bomber Command will be separated. And we have miles of material to put on display, so we're tossing up which to have. That starts in the new financial year once we get our new budget. We've started already, but a lot of the funding bit will start then. And so we're covering all that. Our 2 main display hangers have been environmentally controlled. It's only taken 15 years, and I don't know how many iterations of complaining, but that now allows us to put a lot of the fabric and a lot of the paper and things down onto the hangar floor because the environment is suitable. In the past, when it was 4 degrees outside, it was -2 inside. When it was 42 outside, it was 48 inside. And of course, we had these fluctuations, which wasn't good. The aircraft were all right, but for that. So now, that happened in November. We've had a slight hiccup with the insulation recently. They've fixed that. So you will start to see other things going on display onto the hangar floors. You know, our eyes are bigger than a valley, but that's the only way to do it. And so hopefully a lot of this stuff will move out onto the hangar floor so you can put stuff next to the aircraft so that people understand the connection. Our aircraft displays, well, obviously we have the aircraft displays. We've now got those 2 hangars have been air conditioned. I'll probably work on the rest, but you know, you got to walk before you can, or crawl before you can walk. And we have other displays. We've got 4 hangars of displays, and as I've already indicated, in the restoration area, we have a viewing platform which I'm just about to put a business case up to have it a bit more modified. Instead of the monkey cage we got there, we want to make it a bit more professional to fit in with the rest of our displays. We've just changed the area, safety equipment, all that sort of thing. People outside of us, and I'm preaching the converter here, they don't understand what ALSE is. Well, you fellas probably don't know what ALSE is, do you? Everyone know what I'm talking about? Aircraft life support equipment. In our days it was called safety equipment. They've changed the name. So it's ALSE. And so yeah, we've got to put that on because people don't understand it. And there's a historical context to it, starting from World War I with the wrist compass, World War II with the button compasses and all that sort of stuff, up until the present day with Secamars. We can talk about it, we understand that. 140,000 people that come to the museum have got to learn that, and that's what it's aimed at. We're not preaching to the converted, we're preaching to those people that come on board. The Boston is one of our restorations from Amberley. The helicopter here is one of our restorations. Matter of fact, anybody rad techs here? That would have been over at Rad School, probably, but I know you would have Suze in your day, there's a problem. It was a training aid, and when we were offered it, we grabbed it. Now, the significance of this particular aircraft, it was number 1020. It was actually one of the 2 choppers that was in the Battle of Long Tan. And so it's quite significant to the RAAF and to our ADF military history, particularly the Long Tan being one of our famous battles of Vietnam. So we were able to get that, and number 21 Squadron was able to restore it to us and bring it back to the original colours. And of course, that's when we get fellas like yourselves that come over, that wasn't the colour we had in those days. We had 7 different colours on the helicopter blades when we were restoring it. So fortunately I had the power of veto and we put the colour on that I reckon it should have been. You had to do it because Ron Breton reckoned that and John Clark reckons that. Hang on a minute. So we ended up doing it. On the other side, as I was talking, and we do community engagement. And the reason I bring this one up is last year, around about May, the University of Melbourne, the Grimwade Institute, where they have conservation, we don't very well with those people, and the Victorian DVA decided to do what they call a War Heritage Roadshow. And they had a wonderful team of conservators with their assistants, but they forgot one thing. When people turn up with objects, none of these young ladies, and was one young fellow there, not being nasty, but they didn't have a schmick of what they were talking about. They could look after it. And so they asked if I would go on board. The airport was happy with it. Myself and Emily, who's our collection manager, we went down. It started out in August last year, believe it or not, and it finished the weekend before Anzac Day. And every weekend, basically with the exception of Christmas, we went to the regional areas. We went to Warrnambool, Echuca, Ballarat, Bendigo, all those, Wodonga, Mooroopna, Bantam. We went out there, they put the bill, and it was very refreshing to see what came out of the woodwork. We're talking the great uncles, the great grandfathers, all those fellows from there up to from the Boer War. And these conservators were showing them how to look after them and keep them. If they didn't want them, they would donate them to museums, and my Army and Navy counterparts were happy for me to accept them, and we were able to do that. So one, we were preserving it, but if the families wanted to keep it, they were showing how to look after it properly. And as I said, very, very refreshing. It was quite an exciting, a very long 12 months, I can assure you, but it was good to see. And these people, up the top there, for instance, that family, as you can see by the cabin trunk, it was his AFC gear and the letters home, and this fellow wrote home to his mother every week, and there was a hat box full of letters. He was in the Army as a signaller, saw these things flying, thought better there than in the mud, so he joined, he became a pilot, he got killed obviously, and so the family still had it. That's how they brought it into us. We were able to identify it, tell them what it was all about, and the conservators then, the fabric, photograph, objects, those people were able to tell them how to look after the stuff. So that in the community engagement is one of our biggest we've had to be involved with. And I come from this country and it was good to get out there. It was really good. We finished off actually the weekend before Anzac Day here in the Museum of Victoria. They footed the bill and told us to go in there. And we started at 9 o'clock and finished about 5:30. we'll add 20 minutes per people, and then we're still trying to throw them out at the end. A lot of people came in and you just couldn't turn them off. It was a thoroughly good engagement, and it helped the RAAF Museum because we were up there with the conservators. The other side, restoration, Ron Redden, Ross Garraway, they're involved here somewhere. The mosquito, been a long-term project. It's going to be a long-term project. When it first came onto the hangar floor, it looked okay, but the problem is a lot of the glues, the casing formaldehyde, crystallising, the skin's lifting, and they're really chasing their tail. We got this in 1986. The fellow who got it from the Air Force, one of the engines put over his orchards, kicked the frost off his orchards. So he cut the wings off and he put these in. And we got it and decided to restore it. It went to Richmond, up in New South Wales initially, and when that section closed down, it came back to the RAAF Museum and it started out. They are doing a very good job, purely a voluntary job. The volunteers are working on it, as is with the DH60, another project, the mosquito back. The DH60, important part of our training, looks like a tiger moth. It was in the Air Force at the same time as the tiger moth for World War II. That again is purely a voluntary job. And it's not just us doing it, and the Air Force is doing it. We get a lot of help from outside. And for instance, these are the engine mounts. Now, they're the original engine mounts up there, and as you can see, one's not exactly very healthy. RMIT have reverse engineered, and this came from RMIT. So we've now got the four. The engine has been fitted to the aircraft, but without that industry outside, such as RMIT and Ron Redden getting in liaising with them, that's what we've come up with. So RMIT has helped us out. We get people like Wasrose Bank Engineering. They've done other things for us in the past. Ansett, where they were going, they do stuff such as our plating and things like that. So we do rely on those people to give us a hand out. But that's part of the restoration area. This is the trainer formation which I indicated over the shrine. As you can see, we only own one wind shield, one CT4 and a Harvard. So we've got all those have come into the fold, and we can almost get, if we really tried, we could have 5 wind shields, 4 Harvards and 7 CT4s if we really want to. But we have to be very careful on who those fellows are and their availability. They're mostly civilians and they've got other jobs to do. Our displays indicates 3 days a week. The Tiger Moth is one of the basic aircraft we have. Not only is it for Intradac, but it's also our lead-in. The Sopwith Pup, obviously one seat, a bit hard to try and teach somebody. So our Sopwith Pup pilot has to be trained up in the Tiger Moth, and then he graduates over to the Pup, obviously. And tail draggers. Unfortunately, all our pilots today, we've just had a young fellow come on board, Briggsy, and he's flying tricycle undercarriage. And he's got to learn to fly tail draggers, and so we have to start them from the ground up. That's the nature of the beast, and as we're getting older and the younger ones are coming along, they're going to have to learn to do the tail draggers. So the Tiger Moth is not only a show painting, but it's also an operational aircraft to train our bods. The Sopwith Pup up the top, that's our World War I replica, very a pretty little aircraft and a good crowd pleaser. And down here we have our own CT4, and the wind shield behind it belongs to the RAAF Museum. The other one is a privateer who came in on the day to do the flying. We have a Harvard. We've just acquired the Harvard. We did have one, but unfortunately we let the pilots play with it and they wrecked it, so we had to get another one. And that's one of the sort of things where I get myself into poo for going over my budget, but we're able to get it. And it's, of course, a lead-in, because at the present moment we've got 2 museum pilots. One has indicated that he's going to hang up his hat next year, and so he is an instructor, so we're trying to... So during the war, they did their training on Harvards to go on to bigger and better aircraft such as the Mustang. We're doing exactly the same today, how the wheel goes round. So the Harvard has come on board and we're training pilots up so we can get them into the Mustang. It's a bit of a hanger queen at the moment, but it's going to be flying by August, otherwise we're going to be recruiting another tech curator because he's going to get murdered because he's got to get it done. The Mustang will be back in, hopefully by August, we'll have it back in the air. At the moment, the engine's out. The problem was we found some metal in the engine a couple of years ago, which had to be overhauled. The capacity in Australia was dried up, and we had to go overseas. And we had 3 quotes, 2 from America, 1 from England. The American ones were a bit shaky, whereas the fellow in England is on his 4th 5-year contract with the Ballarat Memorial Flight. I think he knows about Merlins, and so we had it done. And I was able to convince the chief that yes, we've got 1 engine if we had the same problem. So we've just had our 2nd engine overhauled, so we have a spare. Now, I know that you black ants are thinking how we're going to keep going. We're doing a bit of a deal with a fellow who's got a test rig, and we'll probably put it on and keep turning it over. And so we've always got the engine serviceable, because you know yourself, the longer you leave them, the seals dry out, then you're right back to square one. And when you spend $320,000 on an engine for overhaul, you've got to keep them going. So hopefully that'll be up by August. And of course, our latest acquisition is the Royal Aircraft Factory REOA. That should be flying in September. We just got the paperwork equal to the weight of the aircraft, and Castle signed off on it. Right. Now, the pilot, we've got to bring a fellow bloke from New Zealand to just do a quick conversion with our pilots. So that's where the Tiger Moth comes in. We're keeping the fellows current there, and so our Raglan pilot, Chris Tolt, will be the lead pilot from there, and he'll take that into the air once the Kiwi has given him which way's up. We have been running. We did have an engine problem, and we've got a fellow out from New Zealand, and Dave Jones and myself worked with him for 7 days. We took it right back down to square one, and your lawnmowers have probably got a bigger piston. They're about that bloody big. It is a V12. It's an RAAF 4A engine, and the aircraft is a true replica of World War I, right down to the fabric, the instrumentation. And I know you're getting excited about the wooden prop. You'd like it on your wall. If you want one, $28,000 in New Zealand, okay? You're not having ours. And unfortunately for the Air Force, unfortunately for our 2 Techos, we have 2 6'6" Techos posted in, and you need that size to flick start the bloody thing. I can tell you, they are just the right height. So we're going to have to make sure that they're replaced, that we have tall Techos coming out. But it'll be up, and the reason it is a very important aircraft to the AFC. We were operated by number 3 squadron over the front, and it's back in AFC colours. When we got it as a, well, RFC colours, get rid of them, let's get our own colours, and that's painted in the same colours that Lieutenant Reg Francis flew. And you may hear the stories about 37 hours life expectancy pilots in World War I. The fellow who flew that, he did 440 hours, he survived the war, so you go start reading a lot of those fellows did a lot of flying. He's got a Cupid doll in the letter D, which you can't see. His daughter had a Cupid doll, so he had that put in, and his wife's name's on the other side. We've done a lot of research into it, so it's hopefully, and for all you engineers who get excited about that, you all knew Wackett. He was one of your heroes, wasn't he? Wackett. Well, Wackett was actually the fellow who pioneered aerial delivery. During the First World War, they had 2 of the most dangerous jobs with stretcher bearers and ammunition suppliers. The snipers that take them out. So Wackett could see that, so he actually invented the aerial delivery, got rid of the bombs, and he actually delivered 1,000-round boxes of ammunition under the RE8. And actually, it was the thing that turned the Battle of Hamel around. They were allowed to get the ammunition in. And so the RAF picked it up, but Lawrence Wackett, he was the man that got it. Number 3 squadron, Australia, another Queensland, the Mundingburra in Townsville, see? So he was the fellow who turned it around. So the RE8, very important to us. Our latest survivals, Squirrel and the P3. The Squirrel is in Navy markings at the moment, but that is A22001. And believe it or not, it survived all these years with the Air Force and the Navy, and it came in, they had to bring it in on the Navy markings, or the number, because it was still on their inventory till it landed at Point Cook and they handed over logbook. But when we asked for it, the Minister was only allowing 2 to be kept. They did draw good monies. 6 of them got sold to Moorabbin, for instance. So 2 were kept for the Australian Defence Force, 1 for us and 1 for the Navy. And they painted back in the original blue colours for us. When we got them in 1984, that was the first time we had aerial cargo moved in 707s. We brought our first 3 out from France in the 707s. And the Orion came in December. We've been watching that like a hawk, and we've got it. It's a very significant aircraft with a lot of operations overseas and around Australia. It's just undergoing its rubberisation. If you've seen our C-130 and the Hawk Siddeley, we've got a rubber compound on because we're trying to get a large belly, and that one at the present moment is just being rubberised now, and it'll preserve it in the harsh environment we've got at Point Cook. Look at that. Just a shot from the air of our heavy metal there. There's the Orion, our Hertz, our Bristol freighter. That's just a shot from there. So, any questions?
Glenn first.
Can't see it either.
Very good presentation. A lot of effort being put into that. It's really great stuff. I remember seeing many years ago the remnants of a V2 rocket outside the museum. I don't know whether there's a V1 there as well, but I was often wondering whatever happened to that V2 rocket.
V2, it was a V2.
Yeah.
It actually came out at the end of the war, went to Holsworthy, and then they didn't want it as a Gate Guardian. They sent it to the RAAF Museum, and we really didn't want it because it didn't fit our charter. We're AFC RAAF, same as the 163 and the 262 we gave them the War Memorial, and the V2 went to the War Memorial. They've got a complete one on the trailer, but they need parts, and they're going to make one out of the 2. And so we gave it to them, they can look after it. They're very, very unstable in our environment, even up there.
Sorry, Richard.
David, thank you for your presentation. It's very much the Air Force's Aircraft Museum, and I was glad to see that CPE had been mentioned. Are all the photographs declassified?
We only have the declassified ones. Anything that's staffing confidence, medical incompetence, etc. Aircraft paintings are held at the barn in Canberra, which we're happy with, because we do have people come in and do research. They don't get into them, but we've got our security is basic, and we can't allow them. So everything is there. People can. Yeah, they're declassified, but they're still on the restricted. We have to see what goes out there.
The other part is being a communicator, I'm interested in the preservation of communications facilities which supported aircraft and other operations throughout World War II and ever since.
We do that. We've taken on the TACANs. The TACANs are going out. NDBs are finished. All the quad radars, we have all those in the collection. We've actually had a lot of that in the collection, and we're now just getting the stuff that's being used in the Middle East. The ground TACANs and stuff like that, we're getting that as well as it's going out of service. The latest bit we've got that we found over in Edinburgh, believe it or not, is the Bloodhound tracking radar station that's been sitting out the back and 4 beeps. And we're not going to get that. Somebody else can bring it over to us. We're not going to do it. But we are getting all the communication stuff. We have a lot of communication stuff in the collection now. We're not just aircraft.
Thank you.
Roger.
So you have to volunteer look after it.
Great
Volunteer
presentation.
look after
Are
it.
you still interested in personal memorabilia
Certainly.
for World War II?
Interested in a couple of you fellas taking time off and standing in the display case for us too.
Contact you or just bring
Yeah, just give me a...
You won't get paid though.
Yes, we are actually, as I was saying earlier to Ron and to others, that we have got a lot of senior officers that are starting to get on. James Milne, for instance, is going through his gear, and he talks to them regularly, sending it down. My philosophy is send it to us, let us throw it away, because we don't know what the people have got.
Or things like escape ramps and open compass and the medals for the wives while the people were away in
Yes.
Bomber Command and so on.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'll
Yeah,
contact you.
yeah. You know, we won't take everything,
No.
but we'll take the stuff that we're missing in the collection.
Okay.
For instance, John Clarkson turns up with regular monotony, with these little boxes of stuff he finds,
Yeah.
and actually a lot of the stuff that John brought in were the Air Force lists.
Yeah.
And what John's brought in, with the exception of one or two, have filled the gaps that we had missing.
Okay.
And they were very important because you can...
Will you have me if I contact you?
Yes, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
But we do get a lot of that stuff from, and as I said, with the community engagement I had around with the War Heritage Roadshow. I have to tell you a funny story about that War Heritage Roadshow. We're down in Warrnambool and this elderly lady was there and she had her her husband's logbook, and he had kept it from when he joined, did his EFTS in Australia, went and did his SFTS in Canada, went into Bomber Command and got the chop. She kept his diary, and it was the old ledger books. Remember the old ledger books about that thick, and you wrote in the red and the black for, that was his diary. And when she showed it to me, I was reading it, and the young lady that was giving me a hand that day, she said, "Well, David, can you read that?" And I said, yeah. We were taught to do that when we were at school. It's called cursive writing. We used to have copy books. And I'm not going to let you, I had to read it because she could not read that writing. And then I had to lecture, because we used the school at Warrnambool, the headmaster wanted us to talk, and I talked about heritage, and this girl, and the other girl, "Oh yeah, you should see what he can read." Yeah, so, you know, that's the stuff we're missing. It's all this stuff these days. But
Two more, one and two, but Dave, you're first.
Yeah,
So-
a great presentation, Dave, very good. Have you got your name on an F-18?
yes. Sorry, our recent, when we get the F-18, the PC-9 and the Black Hawk, which we did operate Black Hawks, fellas, that'll be the last of our aircraft for 20 years. We have got everything then. Everything's too new.
Yeah.
And the Black Hawks will be, we have got one example of every helicopter from 1947 through to the present day. We'll get the Black Hawk in the ROA.
And the last one.
Do you have a relationship with the RAAF, the museum in Nil?
Yes. Actually,
Well,
I've just done a bit of work for them over there.
It's a brand new
We're away.
It looks absolutely brand new.
Yes.
And,
Yeah, no, it was
nearly rebuilt ROAM.
Bob Sorensen. Yeah. Yes. Now, we do a lot with other organisations. We give them a hand out, particularly I was talking to earlier with the B-24 Liberator. We go and talk to those a lot too. And believe it or not, the War don't have technical people on board, and we get called upon to go and give them a bit of technical advice, particularly with the Lancaster. The Lancaster had the same material they had in Canvas, and my time on Canvas, the stress growth and tracking, I went up there to give them guidance and advice on that. So yes, we do a lot with other organisations. Yes. Except they got $50 million recently, we didn't. Vietnam veterans got $5 million.
Yeah, got Brendan Nelson on board.
You'll be right. Right. I need to thank David for a wonderful presentation. It brings a lot back to all of us, I guess. Reconnects us, and you are right. You appreciate history more when you realise that you're part of it.
Yeah.
So I have, in a break of tradition, I have a couple of presentations here for you, David. We've
Not another bloody
we have dug through our. Well, you can leave it outside if you want, but indeed, it is a plaque, and most of us here served in support command.
Unlucky buggers,
Well, you can remember us, because there's a support command plaque. I don't know whether you've got a support command plaque or not.
Probably not.
You'll find out, I suppose. You can add it to the wall. And the other thing we've got here is a brochure of 1986, and it's the 50th anniversary, and the Parade of the Queen's Colours, No. 2 Aircraft Depot at RAAF Richmond. Now, as you know, our good friend Ron helped rebuild the Hawker Demon. It was in the process in the early 80s of being brought together, and the CO of 2AD, when he realised this parade was coming up, wanted that Hawker Demon finished and put on display. So Ron and Dave Ron was doing a lot of the work. Dave did the organising with the HERC, got the Hawker Demon to Richmond, and Sir James Rowland, who was a previous then member for Technical Services, was at the time Governor of New South Wales. He reviewed the parade and he went across to talk to at least Ron at the Hawker Demon. So it's unmarked. It's unmarked, Dave.
Yeah.
So there's another one for you. And just in case you forget it, there's a hat and a badge from the retired RAAF engineers.
I'm sorry to say that I never went to support command. That's all I
talk about you rolling there.
Your life in the RAAF doesn't mean anything now.